So coming up this weekend is of course going to be a UFC card, but we are also going to be getting a pretty solid LFA card this Friday on UFC Fight Pass. And honestly, I think that this is once again kind of one of the better LFA cards that we have had. And I would say it's one of the better cards that we've had in a long time, but that just wouldn't be true because the LFA in the big 2025 has been absolutely cooking with some massive cards that are super exciting. Now I will admit, I am only going to be breaking down 6 fights on this card, and I know there are 15 fights on this card, but it's Dana White's Contender Series time, and that means that I'm going to start doing my tape study for the Contender Series, and I will be releasing an early prediction video for the Dana White's Contender Series Week 1 card within the next couple of days, so hopefully that does excite you and help you forgive me for skipping over a pretty large amount of this card. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is I've started a second channel. It's called Artem at Home. Now, I could have just called it Artem MMA 2 or something along those lines, but I don't know. I just kind of decided to call it Artem at Home because then I can make non-MMA related content. And what I want to do on that channel is kind of anything UFC, MMA sort of related, but not prediction videos. So UFC news videos, matchmaking videos, that sort of thing will be happening on that channel. And this will be my predictions channel from now on. So if you could please subscribe to that channel. I would really like to get that channel to 100 subscribers. That would be pretty awesome. Of course, as well, I did write an article on this card, and I will do an article for Contender Series as well. And I will be doing articles for the Contender Series when they are happening too. Now, let's talk about the main event. Marcos Degli taking on Matheus Severino. Degli should win this one here, and the reason why I say should is it's because I think the LFA wants him to. Another thing I can say about Severino as well is that Severino is taking this fight on short notice. Degli is one of, if not the most exciting prospect outside of the UFC that is not signed to any major promotion whatsoever. He is awesome to watch. He actually does have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and is very good at grappling. However, he does mostly strike. I believe he's a national champion in Muay Thai, at least that's what the LFA profile on him says. And he does show that very well. He's got a very Muay Thai heavy sort of style. He stands very upright when he strikes, and he does have very powerful hands for a guy at 125 pounds. He does have fast kicks too, which is pretty important when you do have the Muay Thai style like him. But he has been recently getting some pretty massive highlight reels where he's getting some big knockouts. He's also been showing great takedown defense in a lot of his recent matchups too. And I just think overall Degli has shown a very complete skill set, no matter really what the fight is going to go. Severino, on the other hand, as I said, he has taken this fight on short notice. He has spent most of his career at smaller promotions. However, he does have a couple of big performances in the LFA. And although he did lose to Lucas Roca, he did win the first round, and he actually took the back of Lucas Roca quite quickly and easily, and spent nearly the whole first round trying to choke out Lucas Roca. But after that, the takedown attempts just did not come very easily for him at all, and he did start to gas out quite a lot. On the feet, Severino is a bit of a kind of, he's just a wild man, you know, he doesn't really have technical striking, he does throw a lot of boxing combinations with his chin in the air sometimes, and he's a little bit wild overall. I do think that Degli is honestly a little bit better everywhere. However, I do think that you need to respect the fact that Severino does have the ability to take their fight down to the ground. And maybe we see Severino put Degli in some problems on the ground. But I think that Degli is the better striker. I think he hits harder of the two. And Degli's on a knockout run. I think that this is going to continue. And even if the fight somehow does get extended, Severino has shown some cardio concerns in his fights that left the first round. And this is a 5-round fight. The next matchup is Herbsouza versus Lima. Now, I'm not actually too sure how big of an underdog Lima is, but if he is a big underdog in this matchup, he could be worth a sprinkle. Now, I am actually still going to be picking Herbsouza, but I will admit there are quite a few red flags that do stick out about his game. Most notably is that since he got knocked out by Muin Gafarov, he just has not looked kind of anywhere near as good as he used to. He actually had some really massive wins on the regional scene, beating a couple of guys with great records. He lost to Gafarov, who then, of course, is now in the UFC. And since then, he took a big step down in competition. And it honestly does seem in moments, too, that his skill set has kind of decreased, too. Because this matchup against Wellington Filho, you can watch this on YouTube. The whole Jungle Fight event is on YouTube, and then you find it through there. I thought he won the fight. I thought he won the first 2 rounds, but he gassed out so badly in the 3rd round, and Philho nearly finished him with ground and pound, and also had a rear naked choke on him in the 3rd round as well. And this Philho guy, he's nothing really special. He had an 8-6 record, and Herbsouza, of course, is a 19-2 record now. Now, I do know that records don't mean everything, but this is a guy that at one point was a very promising prospect, and still is, in my opinion. Another thing about Herbsouza, though, is his BJJ is elite. He is not just any black belt in BJJ. I'm not super familiar with it, but he's like a few ranks past the black belt in BJJ. So once he gets the fight down to the ground, he is very good. But if he can't get that finish, the cardio is a concern. Now, the thing as well about him is that I know he's going to shoot takedowns. He's going to shoot takedowns very regularly in this fight, and that is something that I like to see. If I know someone needs to grapple and they're just constantly grappling, that's good. Now, Mikael Lima, I don't think that Mikael Lima wins this fight, and the reason why I'm picking against him is because he does have good takedown defense, but it's not great. I don't think Mikael Lima's takedown defense is good enough to really kind of stop the genuinely probably 15 takedown attempts that Souza is going to shoot in this matchup. I think that eventually Souza's get the fight down to the ground, and eventually he finds the back, and eventually he tries to find some sort of submission. Now, Lima is going to have a very significant striking advantage in this fight. Herbsouza is not a good striker at all. He's very sloppy on the feet. He's just not a good striker. I don't really know what else to say. He's just not a good striker, but I think Souza wins this matchup. I think he wins by submission. Now, 92% of people picking Souza is actually insane, because I feel like if you watch the tape, you will see that Souza is a very disappointing kind of guy given the record, but I'm still siding with him anyway to win this matchup, but with a very low confidence pick, this one is. Now, Daniel Rojo is fighting against Thomas Bryan. Now, Daniel Rojo trains with the Bonfim brothers, and you can tell this guy is a legitimate boxer. He has a 50-3 amateur boxing record, a 7-1 professional boxing record. Speak of him, there he is there, having a little bit of a box, right? And he's only 24 years old. Now, I believe that he was actually not supposed to win this fight here against Azizbek Temirov. He was a big underdog. Azizbek Temirov, I think, could be the brother of Ramazan Temirov. If he is, let me know in the comments below. But Temirov, of course, just failed the USADA test, which is not even the USADA test, the UFC drug test, whatever it is that they use. But anyways, maybe he's not related, and it's not related at all. But Temirov is also a boxer, and this was a very good boxing matchup. But Daniel Rojo won the fight overall by fighting very well behind a jab, and even threw a lot of body kicks in the matchup too. He just maintained range and looked great. Now, prior to this fight, though, he just kind of had been can-crushing. He hadn't been beating good fighters at all, but that performance alone kind of just does tell me that this guy could genuinely be a legitimate prospect. And the thing about Bryan is this is a step down in competition for Rojo, and putting my tinfoil hat on, I think the LFA is wanting Rojo now to get a finish over Thomas Bryan. Now, I couldn't find all that much on Bryan. He has fought for a bunch of promotions that I personally had never really heard of, and Thomas Bryan, I will admit, isn't a great sort of name to search up to try and find something specific on him, but he does train at a shooter box gym, so he probably does have a Muay Thai style. And from what I did see in the very short sort of like little 20-second clips you can find on Facebook and stuff like that, he I don't think he's as good at boxing or striking as Rojo is, so I'm going to pick Rojo to win by KO. I think he's a legit prospect. Now, Diego Diaz is fighting against Claudio Ribero. Now, yes, that is the Claudio Ribero, the former UFC fighter. The thing about Ribero is he never really was UFC level. I don't think anyone really did think he was, because he was just a very powerful yet incredibly sloppy striker. But he did get a win in the UFC, and he did have a very good performance on the Contender Series with a quick KO. Now, here's the thing about Ribero, though. He does hit hard, and that is going to be an X factor in this matchup, because Diego Diaz striking, I just don't think it is very good. He doesn't move his head at all. He mostly boxes, and his hands are way up like this, which is fine, but you can kind of imagine the kind of fighters that have their hands way up. They're very stiff, they're relatively slow, and he doesn't have the head movements kind of get away with a thing like this. You know how Alex Pereira kind of does this too sometimes, but he can move his head forwards and backwards. Diego Diaz, he don't do that. He's not Alex Pereira. I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, but what Diaz does very well is grapple, and he is on a big win streak right now, and he's actually got a win streak over some very good fighters to, you know, a couple of these guys that he's lost to are legitimate. Romanov, Sergey Romanov, that is, and Carlos Leal. And then, of course, now he just beat a guy called Igon Akhmedov in UAE Warriors, which was pretty awesome. And he got a quick win in the LFA as well by rear naked choke. The thing about Diaz is once he gets the fight down to the ground, his grappling is legitimate at 185 pounds. There quite typically isn't really guys that are great at grappling at 185 pounds. Now, yes, you could point out a bunch of them there in the UFC, but for the most part, a lot of guys at 185 that you think about, they are strikers, really, for the most part. And Diaz would be an interesting addition to the promotion if he can finish Ribero in this one here. He's 33 years old. He's probably too old for the Contender Series, but if he beats Ribero, Ribero is a former UFC fighter. He is a guy that does have a win in the UFC, so it would be a legit win. I think if Diaz can avoid getting knocked out, I think he should be able to find a submission against Ribero. Now, Samuel Diaz is making his grand return. My boy has been inactive for so long, and if you guys know me, you know I love Samuel Diaz. Now, I haven't really kind of glazed Samuel Diaz on my channel yet, but I have glazed him on my articles. Now, this isn't just kind of glaze because I think that he's the best fighter in the world. No. This is a Felipe dos Santos situation where Samuel Diaz might just be one of the most fun fighters to watch because I kid you not, that bell sounds and Samuel Diaz, he steps into the middle of the ring and he just starts to throw down. Now, whether or not that is Samuel Diaz bombing away takedowns, whether or not that is him jumping guillotine, whether or not that is him just shooting a takedown as soon as the fight starts, I don't know. But what it does result in is some absolutely epic fights and a lot of finishes over not very good competition. However, it doesn't matter. He's just so fun. He's so fun. Now, he hasn't fought for a while, which is a shame, you know, and I'm kind of glad he didn't because in hindsight, I think he would have lost to Samuel Silva, and I think he would have lost to Michael Dufort as well. But my goodness, this guy's fun. And he is taking on Procendo. Procendo's tiny compared to Diaz. I mean, when I say Diaz is a big lightweight, like, he's Chris Duncan levels of lightweight size. He's a big boy. And I think he's just going to come out there. He's not going to fight with a game plan. He's just going to go absolutely insane. I don't really know how else to break down his fights. That is exactly what he does every single time. Now, Procendo is going to be so much smaller than Diaz. He doesn't really seem like a guy that is just going to be able to deal with the overwhelming nature of Diaz. And if you do kind of look into him, he also has a lot of first-round finishes. But although Diaz has been can crushing, so has Procendo. And I think it's going to make for a fun fight. I'm picking Diaz by first-round knockout, though. I think it's going to be epic. People that are picking Diaz by decision, maybe you know something about him that I don't, because I can guarantee you, win or lose, Diaz ain't making it to the scorecards. Now, Beatrice Kipsulik, not really much to break down here. She is a legitimate prospect, 13-1 amateur record, 5 wins, 5 decisions. She just cannot finish a fight to save her life in the professional ranks. I think that they're giving her a finish here. I think Beatrice Kipsulik submits this girl, Nayani Silva. It should be a mismatch. It really should be. Kipsulik is legit. I don't understand how she can't get a single finish in the professional MMA division. This should be her first one. I would be shocked if she can't submit this opponent here. Now, that's it for this video. I'm going to break down the Contender Series a little bit later on. Leave me know what you think in the comments below as well, of course. And please, once again, subscribe to my second channel, Artem at Home. I really would appreciate it. Thank you guys so much.